Welcome back to Blam Blam Truckers. This is Beas, and once again, we're dealing with the wonderful world of Transformers. In particular, this is my player general knowledge. This is my reference sheet. Um, yeah, this is what I would print up and hand out to people who, or just share it with them, who were playing in a game with me. So, yeah, this is background, so I'm just going to read through this with you guys. It's kind of more of a dramatic reading. I'll stop and give commentary as needed, but yeah, sit back, enjoy, and listen to my dulcet tones. This is background information any Cybertronian would know for this game world. Setting is important. I've got three sections in mind: history, daily life, and terms. I don't expect people to memorize this stuff as much as keep the sheets nearby while playing to use as a general reference guide. History. In ages past, Cybertron was conquered by the Quintessons, a reptilian race that knew nothing of Energon but had superior weapons technology. The Transformers rebelled, threw off their oppressors, reclaimed Cybertron, and started the Cybertronian Empire. Cybertron reached out into the galaxy using hyperdrives/jump drives to reach new worlds, then building teleportation portals called space bridges that allowed instantaneous transport from world to world. You could literally drive across the Empire. It was during these early days that the Allspark was created, bringing unlimited free energy to the Cybertronian Empire. Cybertron considered itself a benign empire, ruling justly over their fleshling subjects. The fleshlings may disagree. Generally, Cybertron's High Council had a laissez-faire attitude toward the fleshlings in their empire and mostly let them run their own lives. Cybertron's golden age was the millennia between overthrowing the Quintesson oppressors and the start of the Civil War. During this period, there were various subsets: the ongoing border wars with the Quintessons, the new fronts that opened up with various fleshling factions, the largest being the Nebulons, galactic exploration, etc. There was a lot of work. That was a lot of work for the Autobot army, but life on Cybertron was fairly idyllic. Shortly before the Civil War, Shortly before the Civil War began, a dissident movement slowly grew on Cybertron. It started with concerns about stagnation. Some bots thought they were too dependent on the Allspark for power and life. Over time, what started as a political concern grew into sedition. Their protests turned violent, and in the middle of it all was Megatron. The Autobot Army was the name of Cybertron's military. There were 7 armies led by 7 Magni. It was a rebellion of 6 of the 7 armies that started the Cybertronian Civil War. These rebels took the name Decepticon. The leaders of the Decepticons were Galvatron Prime, the 6 rebellious Magni, as well as Galvatron's dissident son, Megatron. The initial coup attempt was stopped by Optimus Prime and Rodimus Prime, who were both in Iacon reporting to the High Council that day. Grimlock, the monster, was nearly deactivated trying to stop the coup, played some major role, but details are sketchy. The Primes rallied their forces and contained the Decepticons on Cybertron's smallest continent, mostly around its capital city of Kaon. They would fight a mostly Cold War of attrition for a long time, containing the Decepticons and grinding their forces down. After years of this grind, Megatron led a daring raid into Autobot territory, stole the Allspark, and raised an army of Vehicons 10,000 strong. This was a despicable act to the rest of Cybertron, anathema, but effective. The Vehicons ravaged Cybertron, none of them particularly strong, but they swarmed out of Kaon, attacking Autobots and civilians alike. Megatron was quickly taking over the planet. Grimlock created the Dinobots, smashed into the heart of Decepticon territory, stole the Allspark and a starship, and disappeared, never to be heard from again. The war heated up. The Vehicons went on a rampage, decimating the planet. They destroyed the few forms of Energon creation now that the Allspark was gone. Both sides wore through their Energon reserves. Transformers rarely die. Even during this relentless civil war, most bots who were deactivated went into stasis lock and could be repaired, unless there wasn't enough raw material to fabricate replacement parts or enough Energon to restore their sparks. More and more often, the medicos couldn't repair those in stasis lock. Instead, they removed their processors and spark chambers and put them into storage facilities. The war ground down. A rogue meteor threatened Cybertron. Optimus Prime gathered his elite Prime Guard and a ship to go deal with the threat. Megatron secretly followed to destroy his hated enemy. Neither was ever heard from again. Centuries later, the war ended. There was no peace, no treaty, no ceasefire. There was simply no Energon left to keep fighting. There weren't many Transformers left either. An Autobot lieutenant named Secundus gathered what Autobots and civilians he could and left on a small space shuttle, making their way to Earth. So that would be the history that a player would need to know and be able to reference while playing a game. Daily life. Cybertronians reproduce by building a robot form, programming it with information, and then infusing it with Energon, the living energy. They do this with either a Vector Sigma supercomputer or the Allspark. Cybertronian reproduction is far more deliberate and less random than organic life. Cybertronians choose when to have children and who to raise those children with. While their personalities and relationships are very similar to organic life, their families are very different. You grew up with at least one parent, probably more. Sometimes one being chooses to raise a child by themselves. This is uncommon, but not rare. Usually two beings choose to raise a child together. Sometimes a group of beings take on the responsibility together, forming something of a family group. If a group is raising a child, then they usually raise more than one child at a time. You may have brothers and sisters. You may have a child or children. Who are they? Who did you raise them with? Gender is a choice for Cybertronians. It is not genetic, and most choose to remain neutral. Some choose to be decidedly male or female. The few sociologists that study Transformers think that this is a change from after Cybertron started interacting with organic societies. Some Cybertronians don't take a humanoid form at all. Ravage, Laserbeak, and many others choose animal forms instead. Some Cybertronians take two vehicle forms. Some forego a vehicle form, choosing a humanoid form and an animal form. These are not organic beings. They are different. Bear in mind that this would not stop them from being able to interact with technology. I know it's not in here. When a Transformer interacts with a computer on Cybertron, they would actually, it puts the cyber, the interaction between life and machine, is why we have cyborgs and what the term cyber refers to. Actually, we could look that up real quick. Relating to a characteristic of the culture of computers, information technology, and virtual reality, the cyber age. Wow. And this is why I grew up before the cyber age. Back then, cyber specifically meant interacting with machinery on a that's wow. The meaning has changed. Wow, that's cool. I'm not going to go into definitions because it is often used for naughty things, saucy things. But yeah, it used to mean that. Cybernetics was a study of human-computer interaction, human-machine interaction. That was when I went to college, I swear. 20-something, 25, 30 years ago. 20, I don't know. Anyway, when a transformer interacts with a computer, it actually transforms their hand to fit with the computer socket. So, at least computers on Cybertron, they would need fingers to be able to type with human computers or other fleshling devices. Which is why being, an animal and a vehicle doesn't impact them on Cybertron nearly as much as it would if they were off Cybertron. Let's get back to this in my dulcet tones. You were likely created before the war, or in the early years before Megatron stole the Allspark. You had a family, friends, parents. You had a job, a life, goals, ambitions. You were functionally immortal with a galactic empire to play in. You never had to eat or drink. You didn't need to worry about housing. You were free to explore or party or learn or fight. Sports and arts were very popular. Free to pursue whatever you wanted. What did you do with that? You've lost most of this during the war. Megatron's Vietcons destroyed Cybertron. What has survived from your life, if anything? How did you survive the war? So that's part of character creation, understanding the history and the daily life. This last part of the reference sheet is not. It's kind of like you need to know. These are terms, basically terms, definitions, and notables. Energon, the living energy, the energy of life. Energon is what brings transformers to life and sustains them. Energon can be found in gas, liquid, solid, or plasma form, as well as raw energy. It is usually found in liquid form. Energon is stored in force fields called energon cubes or energon chips. Energon cubes, force fields that convert all forms of raw energy into energon, heat, light, electricity, etc. Put them near an energon cube and the cube will start to fill up. The force field sustains itself from the energon inside. When a cube is completely empty, it dissipates. No fuss, no muss. Energon chips, miniature energon cubes used through the Cybertronian Empire as currency. Unless destroyed or consumed, energon chips will last forever. Prime, a governmental position on Cybertron. Primes are a combination of judge and police chief for an entire continent. Primes do not make laws, they enforce them. Primes serve for life or more often until they step down. There are 13 primes, one for each of the 13 continents in Cybertron, or were before the war. The primes share the matrix of leadership, a data repository they pass between themselves that allow them to store their memories and share them with one another. The 13 primes at the start of the war, Rodimus, Sentinel, Galvatron, Solus, Vector, Onyx, Quintus, Nexus, Logos, Makad, Micronus, Mortilis, and Optimus Prime, who was the newest prime. Former primes include, but are not limited to, Alpha Trion, Omega Supreme, Megatronus, Megatron's namesake, Cerebros, he stepped down opening the spot for Optimus, and Prima, the first prime. Prime Guard, a prime's police force and emergency services. It's one of the reasons why when the Autobots came to Earth, in my argument, my understanding of this is as I said in the history, it was Prime's Prime Guard that he brought with him to stop the meteor or meteor shower, or whatever we decide that it was. So his Prime Guard isn't just his police force, which is why you have, cop characters like Nightbeat and Stakeout and Prowl, but also his emergency services, which would be characters like Inferno, who was a fire truck, and Hoist, who was a crane, and an architect and a doctor. So, and Ratchet, who was an ambulance. You've got your emergency services in there too. Yeah. Anyway, back to the dulcet tones of Beas. The matrix of leadership, a data repository that stores the memories of all the primes. It has taken on an almost mythical status among some Transformers. Magni/Magnus. So Magni is plural, just so you know. Magnus is singular. 7 leaders of the 7 Autobot armies. A Magnus serves a set term, commanding their army as they see fit. The Autobot army protects the Empire and is rarely seen on the homeworld. Autobot army. The Empire's defense force. 7 armies of roughly 100 bots each. It doesn't seem like much, but 100 combat-ready Cybertronians have more firepower than most fleshling worlds. The Magni Rebellion. The beginning of the Civil War. 6 of the 7 Autobot armies attempted a coup and failed. Ultra Magnus. One Magnus did not rebel. He was given the new title of Ultra Magnus and a free reign to rebuild the Autobot army and defend the Empire from foreign threats like the Quintessons. He was quite successful at it until the rise of the Viacons. The High Council, the legislative body that governs Cybertron and the Empire. Quintessons, an ancient foe of the Transformers who once conquered Cybertron in the ancient past. The Transformers learned much from these aliens and eventually rose up and reclaimed Cybertron. The Quintessons are a very real threat to this day. Titans, City Defenders, City Guardians. Giant Cybertronians who were created after the Quintesson War to be the last line of defense against alien invasion. They stand at roughly 100 feet tall and are considered Class 5. Titans can be headmasters or symbiotes, or have some way to interact with other Cybertronians on a personal level. City Guardians include Omega Supreme, Metroplex, Fortress Maximus, Scorponok, and Trypticon. Gestalts/Combiners. Cybertronians can utilize a special ability that allows them to combine into a single greater robot. Combining technology was rare before the Civil War, before it was revived by the Decepticons. The Autobots formed their own combiner teams to counter them. Usually this is a team of robots, a Class 3, and 4 Class 2s or 6 Class 2s. Okay, so it's either a Class 3 and 4 Class 2s or just 6 Class 2s. They join together to create a single Class 4 giant robot. In their Gestalt form, these beings share their minds and their sparks. The Decepticons learned the hard way that the combiner team should be chosen carefully so that they work together well in Gestalt form. Menasor, the Stunticon Gestalt, while incredibly powerful, is famously the slowest Gestalt mentally, taking a long time to make a decision as the Stunticons truly hate each other. Menasor is also, famously, the physically strongest of the combiners, once going toe-to-toe with Superion and Omega Supreme, and holding his own. Expletives and sayings. Scrap, rust, frag, slag, nuts and bolts, that's just prime, rust my joints, rust my chassis, by Primus, by the light of Primus, curse the Chaos Bringer, till all are one. Pain in my diodes, pull my crankcase, get your processor out of your exhaust port, you're glitched, stop being such a piston rod. That's a kick in the lug nuts. With almost a dozen cartoon series and comic book lines, Transformers slang is rich and varied. Feel free to search for more to find something that fits your character. Yeah, your your character should have their own favorite expletive. So in Transformers Prime, uh, yeah, Optimus Prime used to say all the time, "That's just Prime," which was a lot of fun hearing him say that. While the others would say things like frag or scrap. Scrap was very popular. Scrap, rust. Anyway, um, Unicron's Blood would be another good one. You can actually go on one of the. There's two main Transformers wikis I've found over the years, and one of them actually had a list of expletives, and it was pretty funny. Um, and it's long. It's so much longer than this because again, every creator adds a little something, and they often use or come up with new uh, expletives for the Transformers. So there you go. Religion. The main religion of Cybertron is worship of Primus the Lightbearer and the demonizing of Unicron the Chaos Bringer. I have no intention of delving into this stuff, but plenty of writers have, so I figured it's a good thing to put on a reference sheet. And I do mention it, just in passing, um, because, well, it needs, it's part of the lore, basically, and it's fun to throw in a little bit here and there. They went into some series go into it a great deal more. Transformers Prime, which I just mentioned, also had the whole Dark Energon sub plot for the first what 1 or 2 seasons. And it turns out Dark Energon is the blood of Unicron, and Energon is the blood. Regular Energon is the blood of Primus. So, yeah, that's more than a little weird, in my opinion. So I don't go into any of that stuff. But I do mention it. I put it in passing. Okay, last subject here are masters. So anybody who's never played a Transformer before would have to know about this. And frankly, if you didn't play with Transformers during certain periods of time, you may have never heard of these guys. But here we go, the masters. Headmasters, Target Masters, and Power Masters. Oh my. Cybertronians can have a smaller partner that combines with them to give them an advantage of some sort. Usually this is a Class 3 with a Class 1 partner, though there have been Class 2 with 2s with a Class 1 partner. After fighting the Nebulons, the process of turning a fleshling into a cyborg, literally joining their organic spark into a Cybertronian spark, was perfected. Sharing a spark allows the two beings to become part of each other to varying degrees. Headmasters turn into the robot's head. In vehicle form, the headmaster is free to be in their humanoid form. This is the closest two beings can be, literally sharing each other's mind all the time through some form of quantum entanglement, speaking to each other from great distances. Headmasters share the robot body and are generally faster than other Cybertronians. In game terms, both the headmaster and the main bot can perform their own actions during a turn, effectively giving the unified bot 2 actions per turn before multiple action penalties kick in. Headmasters are usually fleshlings that choose to undergo the process to join with a Cybertronian. However, the process was not created for that. It was created for Titans, allowing them to have a part of themselves to be able to interact with other Cybertronians in their scale. The most famous example of this is Cerebros and Fortress Maximus. There's also Lord Zarek and Scorponok. But did that make sense to you guys? You don't always want to be walking around as a 100-foot giant, so you leave your main body transformed into a fortress or a city or whatever it is, and you take your head off, and that transforms into you, a robot who keeps walking around. But all of you is part of the same spark, you're part of the same being. Target masters turn into the main robot's gun. These characters are not as in sync with headmasters. They do not share each other's spark, nor can they communicate through quantum entanglement, but they do get to act separately in each turn. Often a target master can be mounted on a robot in vehicle mode, firing at targets separately from the main bot. Almost all target masters were fleshlings from Nebulos, or Nebulons. Nebulos is the planet, Nebulons are the people. Um, yeah, not a lot of Cybertronians want to turn into inanimate guns. Even animate guns, they don't get the kind of movement that most Transformers want from their alt form. It's very convenient as an immortal to not have to bum a ride, to be able to turn into your own ride. Power Masters turn into the robot's engine. Power Masters share energon with the main bot. They have a high level of autonomy, but when combined with the main bot, can spend their energon to increase the main bot's rolls. Power Masters do share their sparks, but it is not as strong of a connection as a Headmaster. They can always find their partner and know if they are alright or not. Generally, Power Masters have a way of producing energon besides consuming it, like a solar port. Before the war, Power Masters were most common among explorers, Class 1 Transformers who would join scouting expeditions with a larger bot that had a hyperdrive installed. Yeah, so that's, again, my take on Transformers. This would be my handout for people who wanted to play a game with me. Do you want to play a game? Um, yeah, don't have much more to say than that I haven't already said. Covers most of what you need to know to make a Transformer character. Enjoy. I hope you had a good time. I know I did. And keep on trucking, you blam blam truckers.